Hi, Tracy. What chapter are we on now?
Well, we're into chapter 3, and it says here, saying goodbye is the name of the chapter. Do you remember how chapter 2 ended, Patty?
I think Diane came and she was going to take him back with her to be trained for a school pony.
Yeah, that's right. And he had so many questions, and
Because he still had lots more.
that's right. Okay, well, let's see what happens in chapter 3. And we might even be able to make it into chapters 4 today. Let's see if we can do that, because I think the children are enjoying the story, and maybe we can try and get through it today. Let's see how it goes. This one says chapter 3 is saying goodbye. So he must be saying goodbye now. Happy awoke to the friendly chatter of the birds who lived in the barn. Everything seemed the same until he remembered that this was the last day at Shoemaker's stables. Happy pushed himself onto his legs. He'd usually slept standing up, but he had been so tired from all the news that he had slept the whole night on the ground. His mom's stall was still quiet, so he headed out to the field alone. He'd had to hurry. There was a lot to do before he left. First on his list was a quick visit to the crabapple tree. The fruit was too sour to eat, but Happy loved the crooked old tree. It had one branch that was perfect for scratching his back on. No morning was complete without a trip to the crabapple tree. Second, he trotted along the edge of the pasture fence to the far field. From there, he could see his favorite part of the farm. The lush valley was misty in the morning chill. Happy leaned against the top rail of the fence and took a deep breath. He always wanted to remember this. The valley was so beautiful, and it seemed to go on forever. He knew there couldn't be anything like it anywhere else, and he probably never would see it again. He didn't want to leave the far field, but he knew he didn't have much time. With a sigh, Happy continued along the fence. He planned on making several trips to the clover patch before he had to leave, and he would make his first now. He trotted to the center of the pasture and dug his nose deep into the sweetness. He closed his eyes and chewed, trying to taste every clover leaf around. You will find clover at your new home, I promise. Happy raised his head to the sound of a familiar voice. It was his mother who stood next to him. How do you know? Happy asked. I simply do, she answered. Now that Happy had one question asked, he had 100 more. His mother seemed so certain that his new home was going to be a good place. Happy needed to know why. Just as he was about to ask, a clatter rang over the yard.
Uh-oh.
A fancy truck and a trailer rumbled down the farm's dirt road. It came closer. Happy could see that Diane was the driver. No, not yet. Happy had so much more to do. He needed to say a proper goodbye to everyone, to everything. He saw Mrs. Shoemaker rush from her house, still in her robe. Happy's eyes flashed to his mom. He thought he would see comfort there, but she too was alarmed. Happy, dear, she began, I don't think Diane would come so early. I really didn't think that. Happy's eyes darted from his mom to the fancy trailer and back to his mom. What can we do? He asked. We have to do something. I'm just not ready yet. Happy spun in a circle and thought about where he could hide. He could jump the fence and go into the far field. It wasn't very high, and the top rail was loose where he was always leaning against it. That was it. That was his plan, Patty.
Whoa.
Do you think that's what he should do?
I don't know. That might not be a good idea.
Son, Happy's mother said, you are ready. You're more than ready. Gracie stepped towards him and rested her head over her son's neck. Happy thought again about the fence in the back field just for a moment. If he jumped it, he could run into the valley. Diane would leave without him, and then he could stay with his mom. Forever, maybe. But at that moment, he felt Gracie's warm breath against his cheek, and he could not leave her side. Happy? Gracie's voice was soft and warm. I am certain of one thing, she said, muzzling his neck. You will make me proud. Happy lifted his nose to hers, and they touched. Just then he heard Mrs. Shoemaker. "Well, I didn't even get a chance to brush him. I had wanted to look at him and make him the best for you before you took him." "Oh, he doesn't need to be cleaned for the trailer," Diane said quickly. "Let's get him wrapped up and ready to go. It will be great to get him to my place before lunchtime. My daughters are very excited to meet him." Happy didn't budge from his mother's side. Mrs. Shoemaker had come into the field to get him. Happy reached his muzzle towards Gracie again, and she playfully nibbled his mane. "We'll see each other again," she whispered. Then Mrs. Shoemaker gave his halter a tug. "Come on, Happy," she said. "It's time." Mrs. Shoemaker held his halter and rubbed behind her ears as Diane ran the cloth wraps around his legs to protect them. "These will keep you safe for the ride," Mrs. Shoemaker explained. "The padding will protect your legs so you don't bump yourself and get hurt." "All set," Diane announced. "Let's load him in the trailer." Let's lead him in," Mrs. Shoemaker said, and her voice was a bit unsteady. "He's a little new at this." As Happy stepped forward, he felt funny. He lifted his legs high and tried to shake off the wraps. "It's okay, Happy," Mrs. Shoemaker tried to assure him. "You are going to get used to them." Happy wasn't so sure, but he followed Mrs. Shoemaker into the trailer, and before he knew it, the back door was closed behind him. At least Mrs. Shoemaker was still there. "Oh, Happy," she sighed, "you've been such a good boy and so much fun. I know you'll do great things. I'll never forget you." She bent down and gave his muzzle a kiss. Happy didn't know how to say goodbye, so he nibbled her hair, just like his mom had nibbled his mane. Mrs. Shoemaker laughed. "You always were a rascal," she said, and then she patted him on the neck and stepped out the side door. The truck roared to life again, and Happy could hear traces of voices down out in the sound. He stepped forward and looked out the window. The trailer began to rattle, and Happy could tell he was moving. He reached his neck out the window. His mom and Mrs. Shoemaker stood side by side at the fence. He whinnied. Gracie whinnied back, tossing her head up into the air and down, and Mrs. Shoemaker was waving. Happy could see them getting smaller and smaller as they got farther away. He stretched his neck farther to see. As the truck and trailer rounded the bend, he could still see them. Still, 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 and then they were gone. What do you think of that, Patty?
It didn't sound like Mrs. Shoemaker was ready to let him go.
No, I don't know if he was ready to go either. It sounds like he wanted time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Tune in, everybody. If you come into the next episode, we're going to air it right away after this one. We're going to get into chapter 4, and it's about a new home. And I have a feeling we'll find out a little bit more about where Happy's on his way to. Okay? All right. So I'm tuning out for now, and come on back for part 2 of this session. It's chapter 4 coming up.